like how to use county records, how to use state records, how to use this African American resources as archives, or how to use the Dawes rolls. Because we all know some of us have Native American ancestors, and we want to know how to trace those as well, right? So today's workshop is how to use county records. And then in September the 7th, it's how to use state records. And I want to show you how the difference between using the federal census and using the state census, because they are entirely two different animals, and they're done in different years. So if you can't find someone on the federal, then you find somebody on the state. But today's task is how to use those county records. And you're going to see that sometimes county records kind of straddle the line between being county records and state records, okay? Because you can find them at the courthouse, which makes you think it's a county record, right? Because it's at the county courthouse, when actually it's a state record, okay? So when you go to the courthouse, you see some records, and you're like, is this for the county, is this for the state? It doesn't matter. You're just trying to find your ancestors, right? And you want to turn up every stone you can find. Okay, whether it's a county record, a state record, if it's a municipal record. If the record is there, I'm going to turn it over to see what's in there. Sometimes there's nothing, then other times it's a gold mine of information. So we're here at the William Winter Building, 200 North Street. And this building was, we opened this building in 2003. We moved over from the Capers building to this building. So as you can see, using genealogy, using county records in Mississippi. I would like to start out by saying genealogy is personal. And I always say that because when you're doing genealogy and you're talking to your family members, or your coworkers, or whoever you want to talk to about genealogy, the first thing they're going to say is, you mind my business. I've talked to many older ancestors. I mean, well, some of my ancestors now, some of them still living, but they'll say, why are you digging up there? Why are you messing in my business? Why you need to know that? Let sleeping dogs lie. Well, that doesn't work in our genealogy mind, does it? You know, what? Just give me the shovel, let me dig them up. I want to ask, I need to know. So, this gentleman, this is a former enslaved person, and he is from Crystal Springs. And I would like to use someone from the time period to talk about genealogy, okay? So when you finally get those cases, when you talk to your relatives and they don't want to talk to you about it, find someone else. Because usually if one person knows, somebody else knows, right? So don't get in an argument with them, just say, okay. And in your mind, you're like, I'm going to go over and ask Sarah because, you know, they've been together forever. Sarah might tell me, right? And then once you start doing it, the people are like, oh, I didn't know that's what she was doing. But let me go talk to her because I know this part right here. Because I don't think they really knew the real story. So in those stories, sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. But there's some bits and pieces in there that's going to get you over that brick wall. So whatever they're talking about, just ask them, can you record them? And not just write it down, okay? Whichever one they're comfortable with. When I started doing genealogy, the first thing I was interested in is that which states had enslaved people, okay? So I once had a person coming in, and she was looking for her African American ancestors, and she said, they were enslaved in this state. I'm like, that state is not a slaveholding state, and you can not find the records there because you're in the wrong state. Okay, so we talk with those saying, well, Lincoln freed the slaves. Well, the Emancipation Proclamation freed the slaves in the states that seceded from the Union only. Okay? So if your state did not succeed from the Union, that's why the 13th Amendment is important. It covered everything. The Emancipation Proclamation only covered those states here and the dates they succeeded from the Union. But you got a big old section here. Let me see if this pointer works. It does. You see these states right here? It says territories open to slavery. You got this big area right here. Don't skip those states, okay? Yes, we want to concentrate on these states right here in the pink. These are the states that succeeded, and you see Mississippi was the second state to succeed from the Union. But then you have the free states. So you got California, Oregon, and all these other states up here. Now, these states up here become important when, after the Civil War, when people started migrating from the former enslaved states. Because you hear, everyone say, "Oh, my ancestors, they went to Chicago. Some went to California. Some went to New Jersey." Okay, because those are considered the northern states that had offered more opportunities than the former slaveholding states after Reconstruction. Okay, because we know there's a whole turnaround between after the Civil War and the end of Reconstruction. That's a big part of history that we have to go through. So going on. Another thing that's important is when was your county formed? I always have someone to say, "Well, I'm looking for my ancestor, and they lived in Humphreys County." They always lived in Humphreys County, but Humphreys County wasn't formed till what, 1918 or something like that. So they need to be looking in the parent county, right? They need to find their county. And what I do, I find my county and I make a circle. You remember those little comps that we used when we were in grade school? Had to make that circle? You make you a circle. Then you start visiting those courthouses in your circle. Okay? Try and find the oldest courthouse first. Now also, it may be that your county had a courthouse fire. So I'm from Calhoun County, and Calhoun County is an older county. However, the courthouse burned down in 1922. Okay? And a lot of courthouses, because of the storms and people and what have you, these courthouses burned. But then you have to say, okay, so if all the records are burned, what's my next step? My next step is to look in the courthouse closest to my ancestors, because they may not have gone to the courthouse where they're living in, because you would go to the one closer to you, right? When you go to the archives, I like to put this screen here because it says here county records, and it is online. Okay, so you're going to go to county records by on microfilm, and then you want to go up to over here where it's pre-1920 county records inventory. So those records, the one on inventory, they may not have been microfilmed yet, but it's telling you pre-1920. You can go to the courthouse and look at those records. Okay, call first. I say call before you go to a courthouse. I always call to see what the operating hours are, and if there's going to be someone that help you, because most times courthouses are understaffed, underfunded. So you get there. These are operating hours from 9 to 5, but there's no one there to let you into the records room. Okay, so maximize your time. That's all I'm telling you. So what records are we going to talk about today? We're talking about wills and probates. Now I lumped them all together: wills, probates, estates, and final records. Marriage records, deeds, elder children's school records. I put that one on the end because that's one of those records that's straddling the fence. Okay, and we're going to see what I mean by that. So prior to 1870, African Americans are not listed on the census unless they are free. So in 1850 and 1860, you see the African Americans on the census, and it'll say free person of color, or it'll say Indian, or it's just going to say free person, or mulatto, which all indicates this is not a Caucasian person. because the first census was taken in 1870. Mississippi first census was 1820 because Mississippi did not come a state to 1817. So our first federal census will be 1820, okay? So you want to think about your ancestors being property, because that's what they were. And sometimes that's one of the biggest hurdles to get through, is to think of a person as being property. But if we look at our African-American ancestors, if they were an enslaved person, then they were the property of someone else, right? So you need to find who they were the property of to try to find them. And these are just a couple examples. I'm going to go through them pretty quickly because we don't have an hour. So this is the will of Isaac Ross. And it tells that he is from North Carolina. He died in Jefferson County, Mississippi, where he's buried at. He owned a lot of land and a lot of property. And I want to put this, because I know you can't read it, and I just put it there just to show you what you're going to face when you go to the courthouse. So bring your magnifying glasses and your best eyes. Like today, I have 2 pair of glasses because I need my best eyes. I'm going to bring you one that's transcribed, okay? So this is actually here, this is the actual census, and it tells you, let me find Isaac Ross, there he is, that right there. And he only has one person in the household, that's him. And everyone else in his household is going to be his enslaved people. So after he died, they had to probate his estate. And it shows here how many enslaved African Americans he owned. As in a probate record, when you probate property, they have to put a monetary value to the property so it can be distributed evenly, right? So you'll see that each one of these people here, these ancestors here, they have a monetary value and they age beside them. So then you can go to this 1836, the first census with African American listed on it as a free person, 1870. And it's easier to do the males and the females. So you can add that time frame to the age, and you can try to find them, okay? But in the actual probate record, it may tell you who is going to receive this person, okay? So some were his relatives, and some were sent back to Africa, because that's what he wanted, okay? And a lot of his relatives did not want that because they wanted to keep the slaves for themselves because that was great property. So it was a huge lawsuit. I just want to give you the feeling of what this is like, okay? Sure.
I see some of the numbers are higher. Could that mean those are the free ones or,
If you see a higher number, it's because males who are fit are more valuable. Women who are in a certain childbearing age range are priced higher. Okay? If you see a gentleman and his value is low, that means he may have some kind of illness or he may be up in age. That he is not a good worker for some reason. Okay? Does that answer your question? Okay. So this is actually the second house that he owned. And I like this to show this, to give you an idea that these are actual people. The first house, this is in the Red Lick community in Jefferson County. The first plantation burned, and this is the rebuilt one. As you can see, even in this handwritten one, you can see they have the price over here of what this person listed as their value is. So that means this record has been probated. He had a lot of enslaved people. So now we're going to jump on down to eligible children's school records. And this is the Egypt School in Holmes County. One of the great resources they have here at Archives and History, there's a whole series of school buildings that date back to the 30s and 40s that you've heard of, but you may not have seen. And a lot of the pictures are online, so you don't have to come in and look at it. You can just go to the website and click on your county and see what school buildings they have. So someone now was asking me, so what are the eligible children's school records? It was a way to count the students in a school so they get their money from the state. Like the state lots so much money per child, right? So you did not have to be a person in school, enrolled in school, to be eligible to be educated, okay? So like my father was out of school, he went to the second grade, but even though he went to second grade, up to the time he was 18, he was eligible to go to school, right? So the eligible children, he was listed as an eligible child so that the Clay County school system received monetary money, okay? So that's when I put here, what is Webster's definition? It says that can be educated or trained. So that doesn't mean you have to go. It's that you're eligible to be educated or trained. So when you look at the eligible children's school records, like you were like, I don't think I need to look because my relative didn't go to school, but they were eligible to go to school. Okay, so they may still be there. And sometimes people who are eligible to go to school are listed on the, those who are not eligible to go to school are also listed on the eligible children's school records. My parents were married in 1960. So my mom was 20 and my dad was 18 and my older sister is 1. They're listed on the eligible children's school records because apparently the person who was doing the inventory didn't quite understand what the assignment was. And to us as genealogists, we like that because they're listed anyway. So now I know where they were at a certain time period. So they are a married couple with a 1-year-old child. They're not eligible they're not an eligible child, right? Because they're married. And the 1-year-old is not eligible because she's not old enough to go to school yet. But the person doing the records didn't realize what they were supposed to be doing. So they went down the line and listed everyone they saw. Good for us. Oh, I didn't realize, I guess it's so dark now, I didn't realize you couldn't see that. But this program today will be on our YouTube channel at some point, okay? And you can also go to our website here, the Archives website, and go to eligible children, choose your county, and choose the school year you want to look at. Most of those records have been scanned in, so there's an electronic record for them. Notice I said most of, because in county records, this is not really a county record. Well, this is a state record because it's done by the Secretary of State, but the records are located in the county. Okay, so that's why I have it on this program today because it's listed as a county record, but it's actually done through the state of Mississippi. So it's under the Secretary of State. So we're talking about state records again. You're gonna see me talking about eligible children again because that's that record I said is straddling the line. It doesn't know where it belongs. It's just there, and we're gonna use it. So sometimes the records are transcribed and sometimes they're handwritten. Sometimes it goes from each county is sometimes a little different. Some counties and years they'll list the parent, one parent, and the children and their ages. Sometimes they'll tell you what school they're in. And sometimes you just know what county they're in. You won't know what school they're in, okay? Sometimes they're listed, you say out African Americans on one list and Caucasians on another list, okay? And sometimes they're listed, you'll see WWW, BBB, MU is what? Mulatto. So a lot of times when you see a B and an MU, that's really the interpretation of the person who's actually doing the record, Okay? Because someone say, oh, they're African American, I'm just going to put black. Or they're very light-skinned or fair, so I'm going to put mulatto. And sometimes a mulatto person not really an African American at all, it may be a Native American. Okay? It's all in who's doing the record and what they see with their eyes. So I don't know how that record, I guess I moved stuff around a little bit too much, y'all. So this is actually probate, Marshall County, sale of slaves, the state of Mansell Hall. What's great about this record? It gives me the date, I know what year it is, and it tells me in this record who got my informant slave person. You know, you see that? Joe and Jackson sold to Reuben T. Hall. So now I know to go to his records and try to trace my ancestor. So I know in 1846, this is where he was. So then I skip over looking, I know this person, the other person is Mansell is deceased. Now I need to start looking for the records for Jack and Caroline to see what happened. And they may say in their records, did they sell this person, or this person passed away, or this person got married? Okay? That's what you actually want to see. I think this is a little light in here. This is just a placeholder. This is the library in Houston, Mississippi. Let's talk about marriage records. Now, I thought we had more county records, but let's talk about marriage records. Marriage records can be found in the county courthouse and at the Department of Health, depending on the year you're looking for. Okay? It is a state record. Now, because the Department of Health was not formed till November 1912. So that's when you first get your birth and death records, November 1912. Okay? So at some point, they started saying, okay, we need these marriage records to be sent to the Department of Health and not to the courthouse. But some courthouses kept their records, and at some point, they would send them to the vital records. So if you can't go to vital records and say, we don't have this marriage record, go to the courthouse. The courthouse may have the record. Okay? You get your record actually comes from the Department of Health. That's where you get your actual record. But you can still go to the courthouse and see it.
No, I mean, like, even today, I was just wondering if it was still, like, the Department of Health still receives those.
Yes. Mm-hmm. There's a form you fill out just like you do for a birth and death record. If they don't have it now, go to the courthouse.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
It might be revealing part of my ignorance, but the marriage records, like if I'm looking for my grandparents' marriage record,
Mm-hmm.
it would be in the county in which they got married.
Depending on what year you're talking about.
Okay.
Okay. So if they were married, say they were married in 1870, it would be at the courthouse.
Okay.
If they got married in 1970, it would be the Department of Health.
Okay.
Okay. Because you have to call them and ask them, when do your marriage records start?
Gotcha.
Right. Just like the marriage form itself, the early marriage records are not going to show who the parents are. The ones now they ask who your parents are, right? Early records, they didn't ask that question. So the records changes over the years.
Do you have to pay for receive the marriage records?
If you go to the courthouse, they'll make a copy. Last time I went to the courthouse, they let me make my own copy. But if you go to buy the records, you can't access any of the records yourself. Everything is done through an order form. So I'm not sure whether each courthouse may have their own rules because they generate money for the county. Okay. So marriage records vary from county to county. Always check the surrounding counties if you cannot locate the record in your home county. Ask yourself, which courthouse is closer to my ancestor? Did they have any transportation? Which county is closer to the home of the bride's family? Because usually parents want their daughters to be married before she lets the groom run off with her. Okay? So you said, no, you're going to marry her, we're going to see it. So no, we're not going to get married later. We all going together. Come on, let's all go. Now, we talk about marriage records, and sometimes we see a marriage bond. And a marriage bond is just someone saying, I'm going to vouch for this person that they're going to get married. Okay. So this one is my children's great-great-grandmother, Albert Dampier and Lycan Newsom. And this is 1875. And you see, it doesn't look like the marriage records we have now, do it? Does it? And this one here just shows, sometimes all you're going to get is a little form like this right here. The piece of paper says, I'm giving them permission to get married. Because sometimes there's not going to be a marriage record. Because we don't know what happened in the courthouse. The courthouse burned, there's a piece of paper fall out. Sometimes you just go get a little slip of paper about this long, said, I gave the permission to get married. That's all you're going to get. So when I'm talking about going to the closest courthouse, and I'm from Calhoun County. I'm from the sweet potato capital of the world, you all. Yes. I claim the fame of sweet potatoes. It still is. So I'm from Vardaman, and that's in Calhoun County. And if you notice here, that here's Vardaman, and here's Calhoun City, and then Pittsburgh. That's where the courthouse is, in Pittsburgh. If you don't have transportation, that's a long little route right there. And if you know the roads through there, you don't want to go anyway. It's a lot of trucking going on through there, and 2-lane roads. So travel at your own will, at your own risk, as I say. Now, Vardaman, here's Vardaman. I'm gonna go over here to Chickasaw County over here in Houston, which is a straight shot, right? It's 10 miles. Where would my ancestors go? They would go to Houston, wouldn't it? It's a straight shot. And I didn't know that for years, till one day, because I came to Jackson when I was 11, I lived here. And so one day I was up there, up in Vardaman, and we were in Houston. I said, and I wasn't used to driving. I was a late driver, okay? I taught myself well, but so hey, beware. I was in Houston, I said, how did I get back to Vardaman? And my sisters out there, they said, get out on the highway and hold the road. So, what? Get back on the highway and hold the road. I said, they said, Joyce, get on 8. It's a straight shot. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So then I started just thinking about genealogy. I'm like, and I couldn't find my ancestors because the courthouse had burned. I'm like, because when I went to Houston, there the courthouse was right there. So I just pulled over, went to the courthouse, and started finding my marriage records of my mom, my dad, my grandparents, all the people I thought got married in Calhoun County, got married in Chickasaw County. Then I started finding some of my relatives on my dad's side who was supposed to got married in Clay County, got married in Chickasaw County. And some of them were actually related to each other. But my mom told me to leave that alone. So I left it alone for their sake. But you know why I kept on digging, right? Okay. I just didn't tell them, So something you just don't need to tell everybody. So y'all have, and of course my marriage records, and this is another place. So these are, this is a dog trot house. Have anyone ever lived in a dog trot house? Okay, so a dog trot. So dog trot means, if you see here, you see the open space right here? And then you have chimneys on this side and chimney on this side. And a lot of them don't have 2 double chimneys, they have 1. But the space in between here, these are called a double pen house. A double pen house, this means there's 2 structures with a roof. So, and you had open space in between. So we lived on one side, and the kitchen was on the other side. So in the summertime, your living space didn't get as hot because you were cooking in the kitchen. But however, in the wintertime, it also wasn't as hot. So you really want to spend a lot of time in the kitchen at what was really warm when using that wood burning stove or the fireplace. And I lived in several when I lived in North Mississippi. And I remember one time I told my dad, I said, Daddy, there's a deer on the porch. He ran and got a shotgun. We had deer meat for a while. So Dad said, if he came up here, he must want to be eating.
Here, instead of like shotgun bullets.
Yeah, they're common, yeah. Mm-hmm. They're very common, especially in the areas. A lot of times you see them a lot in the Delta because it's so hot and it's flat. But and also North Mississippi, for some people misperceive as being part of the Delta, which is not. It's two different locations. But they're very common. And I have lived in quite a few shotgun houses too. Yeah. So everyone know what a shotgun house is? Okay. So y'all just want used to this dog trot, huh? Yeah. A lot of the dog trot houses now, they close them in on the front and back and make it look like a screened-in porch like. I'm older than you guys are. Deed records, not just land. Because we talk about property. An enslaved person's what? Property. And what do you have for your property? A deed. Okay. And I use this over and over again because this is the best description I've ever run across in a deed record that's talking about enslaved people. Isn't this not amazing? Not only do you get their age, you get their height, their skin complexion, everything. And this is a deed record from Monroe County. Now, you may not find this in your county, but you don't know to actually look. Okay? And there's a whole long story to go along with this, but we only have a short period of time today. I'm gonna write a book one day about all this funny stuff I find. And this is the part that goes to the deed record previously. And in essence, Medlong was sold to a person, and then the former owner found out that the person who bought her was not using her as a enslaved person, but using her as a more or less wife. And she's had all these children, and he's coming back and saying, I want her back because he bought her on false pretense. And I want all the children that she's had too. Yeah. So when I tell you genealogy is fun, you never know what you're going to run across. So this is 1819. A lot of times you'll find a set of an enslaved person, and that's another deed. I don't think y'all the transcribe one, then the actual real ones. So when you go to the courthouse and say, that's not what she showed us. Yeah. So today's session was designed to get you to think about outside the box. So think about our ancestors as being not just our beloved ones, but also a person who was one time considered as property. And different ways you have to look for property, okay? So you can look in your probate records, your wills and probate, because if you own a lot of property, when you die, you want your property to go to who you want it to go to, right? You don't want the state to decide. So you list a will, and in your will, you list your property. In this case, your property is being the former enslaved person or the enslaved person during the time period. Okay? Then you're going to look at any deed records. Like I said, deed is property. You're going to look for, and I talk about elder children records because some of them start really early. Some of them start in 1866 and on up to the 1960s, depending on the county, when the county was formed, whether at the courthouse fire, because these records were not, even though they are technically state records done by the Secretary of State, they were held in the county courthouse. Okay. So you want, every county is going to be different. When you go to the county, what you find in Adams County, which is the first county form, it's going to be totally different than what you find when you go to maybe Humphreys County, which is one of the counties formed after 1900. Or you may go to a courthouse that has, you may have a county that has 2 courthouses. So beware of that also. So we have 11 counties that have 2 courthouses. Okay, so like Hinds County, we're in Hinds County. It has 2 courthouses. The original courthouse is in Raymond. So records prior to 1870 will be at the Raymond Courthouse. Okay, so Mississippi formed 1817, and you're going to go to Raymond. Records after 1870 are going to be at the Hinds County Courthouse here in Jackson. Now, sometimes they will duplicate the records, and so you can find the records in both courthouses, but that's rare. The best case of counties being formed afterwards, let's say let me say, Alcorn County. Alcorn County was formed in 1870, just like Union County was, 1870. It was formed from part of Tishomingo County. Tishomingo County was formed around 1836, and it was a huge territory up there, okay? But then it came along, after the Civil War, they split some of those large counties, made them smaller counties. So when they formed Alcorn County, all the records were over in Tishomingo County. So someone had the fortitude to copy the records from Tishomingo and take them over to Alcorn. So the Alcorn has some records to start with. I don't think they did that with Union County. They did it with Alcorn County. So when you look at records, and you'll see the book actually itself is say, Old Tishomingo. Because we know that Alcorn wasn't formed in 1836, and you see those old records, and the actual book itself, it would say Tishomingo County. Okay? So that's when I was talking about going to your parent county. If you're looking for a record after a certain date, if it's not in your county, you need to see when my county was formed, and what's the parent county. Okay? Or you be living on the county line. It's like I had a patron who was looking for records from Pickens, Mississippi. And Pickens, Mississippi is in Holmes County. But it's right there on the county line between Madison and Holmes. And she was stressed because she wasn't finding the records she wanted in Madison County. And I was like, but Pickens is not Holmes County. She said, no, it's not. It's in Madison County. I said, okay. So I went and got a map to show her that Pickens indeed was in Holmes County, where you should be looking, not Madison County, which is the reason why you're not finding them. And I just kind of laid it out for her and kind of ease on off. And later on, she said, oh, I found a lot of records over in Holmes County. I was like, good job. So you need to know where your county land. In Calhoun County, my church is in, my home church was, the church was in Calhoun County. The cemetery was in Chickasaw County. It was on the County Line Road. For years, I couldn't find a cemetery for Midway Missionary Baptist Church because I was looking in Calhoun County. And so we were visiting, and I said, wait a minute. There's a county line right here. My sister said, oh, yeah, they live there. They didn't tell me. You know, I guess I should have known. But when I went to the records and I found in Chickasaw County, I found the cemetery. So the church right down the lane from the original white church, Midway Baptist Church, where a bunch of ancestors are interred in the white cemetery because they went to the church with their former slave owner. Or they slave owned during the time period. So you'll see a lot of that. You look at church records, look at the church records for the enslaved person, the enslaver. Because a lot of times they would take them to church with them, and they would have in the minutes, and they would talk about the slaves that are in the church. And sometimes you'll find them also buried in the same cemetery. So at some point, a new Midway Missionary Baptist Church was formed right down the road from the white church. And so if I'm looking for records, then I would go to my church first, and then I would go to the Midway Baptist Church, the white church. Ours is Midway Missionary Baptist Church, and theirs is Midway Baptist Church. They're just like, here's one church, here's another church, and there's the cemetery. So when you see things like that, you know there has to be a connection, okay? So check both cemeteries. Be sure that you ask permission before you go on the cemetery, because we don't want you to have a trespassing charge, okay? These are not free will. This is not free will land, okay? Yeah. So some cemeteries are owned by the church, some are owned by the cemetery association, and some are paid for by the county, okay? So you need to know who owns the cemetery and do you need permission to be out there, okay? I like to put that out there. Next workshop, September 7th, using state records in Mississippi. And we'll be in the same room in the William Winter building. And you have more questions about this presentation today, write them down so I can see you next time. You can ask those questions again, okay? Also be on the lookout, because this presentation will also be on YouTube at some point. I've seen some. I want to tell you that I was in Florida last month, and my ID said, my driving license said Joyce Dixon. However, I'm Joyce Dixon Lawson. Okay, so I registered as Joyce Lawson. They would not let me check in because my ID said Joyce Dixon. I had to have something that said Joyce Dixon, had something that said Joyce Lawson on it. I couldn't think of anything because I'm away from home, and my mind said, Google yourself. And I did. And one of the presentations came up was from the workshop here, and here I introduced myself as Joyce Dixon Lawson. And so I registered there. He said, so it's just a dash to keep you from being registered? I said, I guess so. He said, well, that's easy. Let me just back out Lawson, put Dixon and a dash, then put Lawson again. Here's your key. And it wasn't that simple. But the other two registered wouldn't let me register. But he said, it's just a dash that's causing all the problem. I said, yeah. He said, I can see. It says right there, you are Joyce Dixon Lawson. It is one of the presentations that I did here that you put on YouTube for me. I'm like, who would think that just to Google your own self, right? Mm-hmm. Desperate times, you have to come up with desperate measures, right? So again, anyone have any questions? Okay, so remember, the next workshop is on the 7th, using state records. It's probably going to be a lot longer because we got to go into a lot more detail than the state records than we are with the county records. Sometimes you're going to see some of the county records pop back up again because, like I said, the records straddle the land. Okay. You can also, some of the other workshops I've done are already on YouTube. Just go to our website and just look for Genealogy Workshops. And there are some done by other state employees that work here, some beginning workshops, and hopefully at one point we're going to do one on how to use the Dawes rolls, because a lot of times we have lots of African Americans who have Native American descendants.
And that's
Dawes, D-A-W-E-S. And actually you can Google the Dawes rolls, and there's a search link in there. But if you don't find yourself on the Dawes rolls, I'm just going to throw this out there because I know we're out of time. It does not mean that your ancestor did not have a part of a Native American ancestry. It just means that this person did not sign up to go to Oklahoma. This was a free will sign up. So a lot of Native Americans did not sign up to go. Okay? So just because they're not there does not mean they were not Native American. It just means they did not sign up to go. Or the person may have died before the actual transaction happened. Okay? Yes, I was asking myself, why? Why can't I find this person in the courthouse? Well, I can't find this person on the census record. Well, I can't find this marriage record. Why does grandmama have all these children and all of them say the same last name, and I know all of them doesn't have the same last name? It's all genealogy, right? So I know someone who's had 4 children before she got married, and she gave every one of her children their father's last name. So when so this person looked for marriage records for them, and the daughter said she never married them. She gave them their father's last name so they know who their relatives are. So only the children by her husband have that surname. And sometime on the census you will see that the census taker will list all the children in the household, and then someone just put a ditto. And all of those children are not by the husband. Okay? You'll see different age ranges, and we ask the question, why do we have children that are 5, 6, and 7, then we have children that are 18 and 19? And that's a clue to you to ask yourself, is the head of household the actual father of these children? When there's a question that comes up, let's start digging some more. Okay? Because, like I said, genealogy is personal. If you're afraid of what you're going to find, don't do it. But if you're like me, I'm just nosy and I want to know. Yes. Okay. That's the genealogy for you. Yes, ma'am.
What about adoption records? Like say sometimes children are adopted.
Yes, ma'am.
They change their surname to their parent.
Now we have very few adoption records here. Most adoption records are kept at the Department of Health. Yeah, and because a lot of times those are closed records. They only open after a certain time period. Just like the census is only released 72 years from the time it's taken. Yeah, so you would have to check see what we have first. Then adoptions sometimes are private records. So that means they are not governed by the state or the county. Okay. Not technically, they're not. So you have to find out whether it's a record governed through a state agency, a county agency, or is it done on a private matter. And private records we have no say-so over. Okay. All right. Any other questions?
I have one.
Okay.
You mentioned about like the marriage records and the links, but also I'm trying to look at like birth records. Would it be the same method?
Okay. Now, birth records are a totally different kind of creature. Okay. So birth records, Mississippi didn't start keeping birth or death records in November 1912. Okay. I threw a little monkey with you in there, didn't I? Okay. So prior to that, you'd have to look at the census records, you have the children's school records, and your midwife records. And sometimes we may have a few midwife records. And midwives, early midwives records, they kept to themselves because that's what they did their own training and they kept their records. And unfortunately, when they passed away, if the family didn't want all these papers that grandma had out up here, they threw them all away. Sometimes they took them to the courthouse. Okay. Then the years later, they were supposed to be turned over to the courthouse or to the state. And sometimes they made it there, sometimes they didn't. But prior to November 1912, and even after years after that, a lot of people still didn't know they were supposed to report a birth. They didn't report it. So prime example, my father was born in 1942. When he got to draw his Social Security, he did not have a birth certificate. So he goes to the Department of Health and they give you a list of things to prove who you are and who your parents are. So preferably they want someone there who was there when you were born. So, he's deceased now, so I can't get in trouble. Okay. So my father decided he did not want to go up to Clay County and ask his aunt to sign the paper. So he got a neighbor that said she was his aunt. So she signed it. Then he got a birth certificate. So all records are not true records. Right. But this, I say all this to say he was born in 1942. He did not have a birth record. He had a delayed birth record. Okay. And sometimes a delayed record may not be quite true. Okay? So take everything you see with a grain of salt, but keep digging. It's worth it. Yeah, yeah. So look for the census record, a midwife record, or elder children's school record. Okay.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
How do you advise using Ancestry.com to find records?
Ancestry is a great tool if you work it good. Okay, and there are certain big parts of it, and I just have the basic ancestry. Okay, so if you can't, it's going to basically it will link records, and it will basically link it to cemetery records, census records, marriage records, and military records. However, if you can't find the person that you're looking for, instead of, I like to use myself as an example. Yeah, I guess I'm open book. My great grandmother was from Alabama, and but my grandmother used to always say, "Well, you know, that's not their real name." And as a kid, I didn't know what that meant until I started looking for her, and so I could find them in Alabama. They were Phillips in Alabama. I was like, oh, wait a minute. No, I'm sorry. I found them in 1880. And then I couldn't find them in 1870. Like, surely, with this many children, they should be listed. So I found them in 1870 in Mississippi. Oh, I first found them in Alabama. Then I found Mississippi. But the surname was changed. So instead of being a Phillips, all of a sudden they Sanders. And when I'm like, so I just used the first name. I knew how old he should have been. So I put in his first name, the county, his age, his race, and I searched it just that way. The second hit, when I clicked on it, the entire family living in Lowndes County with a different surname. So you can search it by the full name. I would search by the full name. I would use the first name or the name that you're being called. If your name is Robert and you don't find him under Robert, then you look on what? Bob. A Rob. So switch it all up. Use a wild card. Just put in the first three three letters of the last name and see what you come up with. Use the sound X. How does it sound? My first husband was a Dixon. He was a Dixon. But the ancestors were going to check all those, except for it didn't check Dickson because the code was different. It didn't check Dickerson because that R threw the code off. So a numerator is going to write down the name as they hear it. Okay? So sometime in the same family, just like in the family, my mother-in-law was a Dixon. Notice I said, my mother-in-law was a Dixon. Her husband, a Dixson. Her husband. His brother was Dickson. Because that's the way they always wrote the name. So all of it is Dixon. So you just look at the sound, how the word sounds. Say it out loud to yourself and say, what do I hear? Do I hear Dickerson? Do I hear Dixon? How many ways can you spell Dixon? Don't the C and the S and the K, they make the same sound? Okay, so you hear one, you hear all three of them, right? So just take your pencil and write it out. Then search it. So search by the different names of the last name, spell the last name. Use a wild card, use the first three letters of the name with an asterisk. Use the nicknames. My husband's grandmother on 1950, the census lists all the children in the household by their nickname. I was like, I've never seen this before. Every child in the household, except for the parents have their right name, but all the children names, they have just a nickname. The nickname they carry today. And they didn't believe him until I friend and showed it to them, like, Really? That's what the census says. You know, and some people change their name over years. So some people one lady named Myrtle, and she changed it to Mildred. So there's no legal form where she changed it, but all her children say her name is Mildred. On the census record, when I found her first 3 times from the census, in her mother's household, her name is Myrtle. When she became an adult, she changed it to Mildred. Okay, so don't let the names throw you off. Okay, so that's why I said this. Whatever way you can think of, use a wild card, use the nicknames, and then search it that way. But that's why I use Ancestry. I got a pain in my jaw right here, y'all. But if you can think of a way to do it, I'm always constantly like, okay, if I didn't know how to spell this, how would I spell it? Okay. Then I asked someone next to me, I said, spell this word for me. Except my son, I can't ask him because he likes to break stuff down in syllables. I don't know what teacher taught him that. She was great. I didn't have that teacher. I don't know how to do that. You know, he does. You know, how you spell this? Mom, break down. Just tell me how to spell it. Don't tell me all that. Just spell it for me. But it's always in what you hear. Ancestry the same way. Now, sometimes ancestors will add a name that's not yours. So sometimes you look at the name and they have a different spelling on top of it. Okay? Because the writer, the transcribed version is hard for them to read. So you're like, okay, remember write in cursive and then see what Ancestry says it is. Okay? Ancestry has a great tool for doing that. Yeah. I always use that sound text.